Hello viewers, welcome to the next episode of Sandy Wars, our video series on military and strategic affairs. Today we have a rather unique set of guests to commemorate a unique occasion. We are celebrating the 49th anniversary of Vijay Diwas, the liberation of Bangladesh from Pakistan, and our neighboring country enters their 50th year of independence. We have Major General retired Jamil Ehsan of the Bangladesh Army, who actually fought in the Liberation War as a young second lieutenant in the Bangladesh Army, commissioned and trained in India. And we have Air Commodore retired Ishfaq Elahi Chaudhry, whose family bled during the war. He lost his father, he lost his brothers at the hands of the Pakistani Army. And we have Major General Yash Moore, retired from the Indian Army, who is an alumnus of the Mirpur Staff College. He actually studied and trained with his Bangladeshi comrades in arms. And his Guards regiment bled profusely at Gangasagar and Hilli during the Liberation War. So we'll welcome Major General Jamil, who had actually participated as a very young officer in the force, with his experience, sir. If you can please enlighten us and our viewers.
Okay, I will not go into the background of the genesis of the Liberation War, that we know. When the liberation was started, that is from 26, Pakistan unleashed a reign of terror and committed genocide the night 25th, 26 March, and the whole nation actually imbued with the political inspiration instilled by our leader, great leader, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. On 7th March, people were agitated because of the high-handedness of Pakistan Janta. So people were actually bubbling inside for a political solution, of course. Then people were not aware that in the civilized society in this century, a country can unleash such a reign of terror and commit genocide of that nature, 25 March. So on 26 March, people were taken aback by the military actions of the Pakistan Janta. But then from there are Bengali East Bengal regiments. There are 5 regiments deployed in 5 different cantonments all over Bangladesh. And there are police and border guard that used to be called East Pakistan Rifles. Then also Ansar, that is the paramilitary forces. And there are some civilians who had their personal weapon and all. So when the Pakistan actually spread all over Bangladesh and started committing good action, some raping and what. So people in the regional basis, localized, they registered, and they were organized by where the cantonment is there. Around cantonment, there are Bengali soldiers and the battalions, but there are border guards, EPR, in most of the district border areas, police force. So they also joined. Civilian and.
I think we have lost General Jamil's voice. Air Commodore Ishfaq, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. So what you was, what you were saying was the initial resistance that was offered by the forces that were scattered across Bangladesh, regular forces as well as irregulars. But very soon it was realized that they cannot stand on their own against the onslaught of the Pakistan Army. Elements, almost 3 divisions were there by then. So they had no other option but to take shelter along the border areas. For example, the people who are in northern areas, western areas, they took shelter across the border near Calcutta, and then those who are in the eastern Bangladesh, they took shelter in Agartala and also in the northern hills, Meghalaya and all. So there, very soon, what happened is that the political initial military response was also superseded by the political response, because then in the Indian government was in a big problem, because what to do with these armed people and at the same time millions of refugees pouring across the border. So at that time, the Army League High Command, who had assembled in Calcutta on the first week of April, they were called by Indira Gandhi in Delhi, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and they wanted to come to a arrangement by which this aid can be flown in, both military and humanitarian. And on their suggestions, on 11th April, the interim government was formed in Mujibnagar, we call it Mujibnagar now, just outskirts of Kushtia. And that proclamation of independence and the formation of the interim government allowed the systematic flow of the humanitarian aid as well as the military aid. And just people like Jamil, they were recruited to be trained in the Bangladesh military as commissioned officers. Similarly, there are many camps. For example, for the naval commandos, there was a camp. There were other camps for Mukti Yuddhas. Some of them were in deep inside the territory. Some of them were across the border, very close to the border. Jamil, sir, if you can hear me, you can. What you can do?
I can hear.
You can switch off your audio now, video now. You switch off your video and then continue from your training period.
Yeah, you can tell us about the training period.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Switch off your video, please.
Fine. Go on.
Now you are quite clear, sir.
But
Can I?
video time after that.
I'm not finding the form.
Okay, you can continue, sir.
You will continue, sir, for the moment.
Okay. As the war was getting prolonged and the strength of Mukti Bahini started increasing, the regular forces, and our strategy was to form regular forces with the regular battalions, with the freedom fighters, and the freedom fighters there in the bulk. So there were two groups of actually armed fighters. One is we call Niyamito Bahini, the regular Bahini, regular force, and the Gano Bahini, or the irregular force, the guerrillas. So as the war was prolonged all over Bangladesh, all over along the border, and people have crossed over, settled down 1 million as a refugee, but others, the camps are established. 11 sectors were formed. One sector, that is number 10 sector, was not on ground geographically, but it's formed by the naval commando to operate on the ports and waterways. So sub-units were organized, the subsector, companies, platoons, battalions, new battalions were raised. There were only 5 East Bengal regiments. There are 4 more raised with the regulars and the trained freedom fighters. They needed leadership. So there is a leadership crisis. Only about 30 to 40 Bengali officers revolted from Pakistan Army. So they recruited first batch of cadets to be trained as officer. So from 11 sectors, from different camps, all the freedom fighters, about 61 freedom fighters, guerrillas were recruited by Indian authorities. The training camp was established in a place called Murti, which is about 50 miles northeast of Shiliguri, Bhutan border in the forest and tea garden area. The program started from the end of June. It was 3.5 months training by, of course, the Indian officers. Most of them were captains, young captains, and majors. And on 9th October, we have commissioned, and in a most humble way, not too much of pomp and show and ceremony, but our acting president, Nazrul Islam, Prime Minister, General Osmani, and Indian officials.
Yeah, Jamil, if I can interrupt you for a moment, sir, when you went to India for the training, if you can start from that point, so the emotion, আমি একটু বাংলায় বলি, আপনারা বাইরে গিয়ে দেশ স্বাধীন করবেন, গিয়ে ট্রেনিং নিয়ে আসবেন, ওই যে ইমোশনটা, অ্যাডভেঞ্চারটা, আপনি তখন খুবই ইয়াং, অল্প বয়সী, সেইখান থেকে শুরু করেন স্যার।
হুম।
আমাদের দর্শকরা
ঠিক আছে।
সেটা খুব উপভোগ করবে।
আমরা তো বেশিরভাগই এখানে একটা ইয়াং মিডল এজ গ্রুপ ইয়াং গ্রুপ ছিল সবচেয়ে বেশি এই মুক্তিযোদ্ধাদের মধ্যে, বাট অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমরা কারণ এখানে যদি কম্পোজিশনটা দেখেন, many of them are from rural areas, villages, the peasants, the young school boys, class 9, 10, and of course, the age group of 20 plus, they are from university, colleges, people from all walks of life. Some are service holders, some are working. There are even rickshaw pullers, there are even labor, there are even peasants, all were there. One case, we were secretary of, after crossing 12 class or intermediate class. So our emotion was to, now that we say what was to establish our own country. We had been subjugated for 3 years. We had been seeing how we were treated Western or Pakistani, because they always undermined us and treated us as a second-class citizen. And when they unleashed their hatred, and we felt that we have to be up on our foot, and we have to establish our right and our freedom and our sovereignty. That was the spirit. And most of the time people ask, what was your spirit? Or in Bangla we call Chetana. What was Muktijuddha Chetana? I often say that after 26 March, there was only one spirit we had, that we have to win the war. There's no shortcut to winning the war. In one of my lectures in Staff College, an American officer asked me, when you're fighting, did you ever think that you may not win, you may be defeated? I told him that defeat was a luxury for me at that time, because we had only one goal and mission is to win the war. We never thought of losing the war. There is no alternative for us. We have to win. And that was the right cause for us. That's why it has been proved again. If you fight for a right cause, you are bound to win your victory. And that's what happened. That was the spirit. When we came out, we forgot about our relations, our in the house in Bangladesh. But they didn't know where we were for the next 9 months, and we never knew how are they and what they are doing. That was exactly.
স্যার বাসায় কি বলে এলে? What did you tell your family?
Family, we had been telling, we had been listening to Shadin Bangla Betar and Akash Bani, and all are spirited, all are imbued with nationality. They, yes, we have to contribute, we have to do something, but when it comes to joining the war, sometimes they were in a dilemma, but then in the back of their mind, they had always support. And when he came out, we said we are going somewhere, but we didn't say we will cross over, because my mother was not in Bangladesh at that time. My elder brother was a pilot in Pakistan Air Force. He died on 29th March in a plane crash. So my mother went to Karachi, console his bereaved wife. So she didn't know when I left Bangladesh. And she came back, I heard later that she came back to Bangladesh in August or September, but it was told that I have gone to Manila. So for till December, she didn't know where I was staying for next 6-7 months. And I did not, communication was not so stable, not much of telephone. So we were at our own, and only dream and expectation was to go for operation, go for war, win the war, and inflict as much destruction, casualties to the enemy. That was the spirit. And it was a competition. Who can finish the training earliest and who can join the war or carry out operation inside, along the border, anywhere. So that was the spirit we had. And we had all walks of people from all walks of life in the same, Thatchet house, barracks we used to stay. There were rickshaw pullers. There was a coin, thief, all together. We never felt different. We all were good with patriotism. Food was very limited. Other facilities were limited, but no complaint from anybody. And most of the sought after commodity was the ammunition. The single freedom fighter, if he has more ammunition, he felt proud. He used to show off others. So let's see this. I have this much. That used to be the mental state at that time. So as I said, we were selected in June and we went. We were trained, very hard training because time was short. Ceremonial drill, parade, these were not included, but all practical military training on the ground. So after 9th October, when we were all become second lieutenant, we all were posted to sectors. Some are in the regular battalion, some are with freedom fighters, guerrilla, as subsector they used to be called. I was posted to 11th East Bengal, a newly raised battalion in 3 sector. It is in Tripura, but closer to Sylhet area. So I carried out operations during my stay in the Sylhet area inside Bangladesh, but camp was to border in India.
Jamil, can you please repeat this last part? Where did you get posted, sir?
I was posted to one of the regular battalion. When posting was declared, there was a mixed feeling. Some felt very good about posting in the regular battalion because they are more organized, they can fight well. It is only the dream was just to fight. And others were with the guerrillas, subsector they used to be called. In every sector there are subdivisions, subsectors. So there are companies of irregular forces, guerrillas. So as a commander, some are posted there. So I was posted in Tripura, in the northern Tripura area, closer to border, but close to Bangladesh, Sylhet area. So that place was called Khowai.
Khowai.
So
what was the battalion, sir?
Along the borders.
What was the battalion? Which unit? Which
that
unit?
Was 11 Bengal. 11 East Bengal. Actually, 5 Bengali battalions were there. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 8th. 5th, 6th, 7th were in Pakistan. So 9, 10, 11. 3 more battalions were raised, taking regular troops from these units and also adding trained guerrillas. So that was the newly raised battalion, but they took part in some operations by day. So during that time I carried out guerrilla operations in the Tea Garden area, mostly in Sylhet area. So after 3 weeks, I was again posted to East Bengal, which was in opposite to Kumilla. That is a fierce battlefield area, close to Kumilla cantonment. And from Kumilla side, Dhaka is the closest distance from Kumilla border area. So in
that was 4 area, that was 4 EB. 4 EB.
Bolted from Brahmanbari area, it is from Kumilla. They were in Kumilla cantonment, but all the Bengal units, these East Bengal regiments were all pushed out from cantonment before 25th March. They were sent on in the pretext of internal security duty or aid to civil power. All were sent out, but this became a boon in disguise for us because they could fan out quickly. So one of the battalion for East Bengal. And we were conducting conventional war, remaining in defense area in the trenches inside Bangladesh. And from our defense, inside our defense is the railway line from Akhauda, from Dhaka to Chittagong was running. So this was under our control. So from July onward, this train line was never operational for the Pakistani army. So they had to resort to only the road communication. And Chittagong used to be the port area. That was the strategic gain we had defense there. So for till 3rd December, war, but from start December, when I call final offensive started, we were asked. That was K force. You know, we had three forces of the brigade strength. It is basically a brigade. K force commander is Khalid Musharraf, who is also sector commander. The initial of his name, K force, was for the battalions, East Bengal battalions. S force was sector commander Major Shafiullah. So he had two battalions, East Bengal, 11 and 2. Z force under General Zia's initial name. So that was a moving brigade. They had three battalions. They fought in Meghalaya area, from Sylhet area. These three brigades were there, and all were along the border. All these guerrillas and forces. So from 3rd November, Khalid Musharraf, the commander of the brigade or X force, K force, in direct in October. So hospitalized, and he was released after in late December. He sustained shell injury on his head. So this K force was reorganized as Kilo force. Command of the force was given to Brigadier Anand Saru, jungle warfare commandant in Mizoram. So he was appointed as the commander of the Kilo force, which is a group K force with 2 East Bengal, 4 Bengal, and 10 Bengal battery. That's a 6 artillery gun battery, given from India. It is a mountain artillery piece, and they were called Mujib battery. They were with us, our battalion. And then 2 infantry battalions. One is one is Jat, one is Mahar. 2 infantry battalions from Mizoram counter-incendiary corps were pulled out, but understood. Their highest weapon was light machine gun. So these 2 battalions joined. Then some elements of BSF and CRF placed under Kilo Force to provide the protection, rear and flank protection to the Kilo Force. And that's the way the Kilo Force was organized. So Brigadier Anand Saru came and he took over command. And we joined to join Kilo Force, 10 Bengal and 4 Bengal, Mujib battery. And the 23rd Division, which was assigned to clear Kumilla and Chandpur area from Howrah side. They have a brigade, 83 Brigade, Mountain Brigade. They joined from Kumilla, straight away towards Chittagong. And we, from the Lunian side, we joined. So these forces were advancing to Chittagong, clear Chittagong. We started our advance from January. So the Mountain Brigade, there are 2 battalions. One is Rajput, 8 Pugra, and 8 Bihar. Interesting to note, V.K. Singh was a senior lieutenant to Rajput. So he moved along with the brigade along the main axis, from Dhaka to Chittagong, and he was senior lieutenant. We were second lieutenant. So we always say proudly that we fought together. And after we met, and he was very friendly with us. He had all the soft corner for us. During his tenure as Eastern Command, GOC Command, we attended in 2008 Vijay Diwas ceremony, and we have 2 courses who were trained in India. One is first Bangladesh, I'm from which, and the second Bangladesh workers. So we went, and I requested. I was the president of the foundation of my course. Requested that we went to visit our place, training place Murthy in Siliguri, and that was after 38 years. Pretty much knew much about the location. And I requested, he said, I said it will be a problem because we have a big number. I said, just don't bother, you tell me when do you visit and it will be done. And by that time, he was already declared as the next chief of staff. And 33 corps is under him. We visited 3 times in moves to our alma mater sometime in 2010-11. So we moved to Chittagong. The main thrust was with 83 Indian Mountain Brigade and our Kilo Force, and only our battalion. We took a flanking move from north towards Chittagong, so that the 16 December, after we entered both the forces in the Mountain Brigade, they entered Chittagong and forces, and we were not allowed to get inside cantonment. Most of the places, Bengal regiments or the Mukti Jodhas were not allowed to enter cantonment. There are reasons, and we were stationed in Chittagong University, which is away from Chittagong city. Why? Because there was a fear that there may be distributive actions from Mukti Bahini, and which is much expected at that time. So sometimes people say that why Niyazi surrendered, why don't we go for ceasefire? But he was repeatedly told that if you don't surrender to Indian forces, they ensure protection as per Geneva Convention. But if you don't surrender, Mukti Bahini will sort you out. That was the fear they were scared about. That forced them to serve Indian forces. And that's the way we, on 16 December, we entered Chittagong city, and was surrounded by Indian forces, and they surrendered in Chittagong area. And by that time, it's now our 5 o'clock at Bangladesh time. Surrender took place Bangladesh time 4:31 p.m. Today is the time. So that was my participation in the war, and of course there are so many things to stop. These are the crafts, my involvement in the war. And
So today you
one of my
started. So today you started speaking at around that time, sir. Sir, today you started speaking at 4:30.
Almost the same time, exactly. Exactly. Time now
This is
is
really
around
historic,
5
sir.
o'clock.
I
This is
tell
really
you,
historic.
I tell you exact time what happened. I was moving with my company with about 12 Shaktiman trucks, because I was left behind because not much transport could be arranged for the battalion, because it was moving battle, so Indian authority could not arrange much. I was moved from towards Chittagong on the national highway at 4:30, because it is a winter time. It was almost like, late afternoon. We are moving. I had one transistor on. The transistor I just heard at 4:30. The barren road and no people around. We are moving. Just heard that we surrendered. The Pakistanis surrendered. So I stopped the convoy. I got out, shouted at my highest voice, and told my troops that, listen, the Pakistani army has surrendered. We have won the war. And everybody shouted, Joy Bangla, and they started firing in the sky. People around in the village, they were scared. And then we shot each other and we were crying. And then people also came running and hugging us, and all are shedding tears. That is the only time I thought about my teeth and king, that where are they? Our 9 months, I never thought of anything, because my dream was just to fight them. So that was the spirit at that time. So as I said, I started my this talk at 4:30, and that was the time I entered 16 years back.
Joy Bangla, sir. Jai Hind. Joy Bangla, Jai Hind.
Great,
Sir,
sir.
Jai Hind was not there. Jai Hind, they spoke in Dhaka and around where Indian army got in. Other cities and towns, people came with Jai Hind, Jai Bangla, both. But we were, moving in a road which is less populated.
So when you were going with Kilo Force, did you at any stage come across Brigadier S.S. Uban's SFF? The special...
I know about him now, but he also moved to Chittagong, but he went with his ATF, SFF. So that we learned later, but he was launched from Mizoram, went up the Chittagong hill tracks. From his side, he went into up to Rangamati, established his tactical headquarters. Because there are Pakistani forces, but mostly paramilitaries. So we know about a lot about S.S. Subhan, his contribution of forming Mujib Bahini and the Bahini and other things. So I didn't meet him. Maybe I have met, but I couldn't recognize because we were about 15 days. We were in Chittagong city station, and we used to have a get-together party in the Chittagong port where Indian officers, our Bangladeshi officers used to meet in the afternoon. He might have been there, but I was too small, too young officer, and too small a person. So maybe.
So did you go towards Cox's Bazar, sir, from Chittagong?
No, we went up to Chittagong. Chittagong was clear because Cox's Bazar was not held by regular army. They were held by Pakistan Rangers, paramilitary. But there was a participation from Indian Navy. They said it is a participatory. Indian Navy came with one Dogra battalion, Gurkha battalion. Without much training, they came and they made amphibious landing in Cox's Bazar. But when they landed, actually, previous night, all these Rangers, they fled away to Chittagong and left it to the Rajakars. And only two Jawans from Gurkha regiment, they died, they drowned because
four, sir. Maybe. Four Gurkhas drowned, sir. Four Gurkhas drowned.
I read two, maybe two or four. So that was
no beach recce, when they landed there was no beach recce, there was no
because but probably they have intimation that it was not very thinly held. During my service life, we had carried out an exercise, a nationwide exercise was carried out in 1981 when I was in Chittagong, posted in Chittagong. I was battalion commander. My battalion conducted amphibious landing in Cox's Bazar. So there were we rehearsed for quite some time from Chittagong with LCTs and landed in Cox's Bazar. That was an exercise.
Sir, the report is when Romeo Force landed in Cox's Bazar, that force was the Romeo Force, the Gurkhas, and then they found Mukti Jodhas in Cox's Bazar only. They found irregular Mukti Bahini guerrillas in Cox's Bazar when the patrol went up. A platoon strength dropped there and they sent up a patrol to Cox's Bazar.
Oh, that is there. In fact, in most of the areas, these are actually choke points. There are guerrillas. And only, I said, regular Pakistan couldn't spare force in Cox's Bazar because from that side, not much of threat probably expected, and we couldn't also launch. So from number one sector, guerrillas were all over the area. So those guerrillas were regional, localized guerrillas.
Sir, we have heard
General Anand Sarup. We met General Anand Sarup in 2014. He led the delegation to attend our Victory Day parade, and we met. I went there. CEO of the 10 Bengal, who was in Feni area, Jafar Imam Bir Bikram. He became later joined politics and became minister. He was there. My 2IC was there, Captain, later General Kabir, myself, and we met him in the hotel.
Sir, so you personally worked with Major Khaled Musharraf, sir?
No, I personally, no capacity I worked with him, but since he is from number 2 sector, he is from 4 Bengal. He was the second in command of the 4 Bengal during the revolt. And 4 Bengal owns him dearly. And you ask anybody from number 2 sector, guerrillas, freedom fighter, they have a tremendous respect for Major Khaled Musharraf, because they are personally involved. Another name you will come across is Major Haider. He was a commando. He used to train people and is a very amiable personality. But since I am from 4 Bengal, the regimentation goes a long way. So he used to, look after us well, and we used
There
to,
was another
you know,
Major
honor
Jamil, sir. At that time, there was another Major Jamil.
Major
Sorry?
Shafat Jamil.
Yes, sir. He
Major
also was.
Shafat Jamil. He is also from Fort Bengal. Actually, he took initiative work in Brahmanbari area before Khalid Musharraf joins from Sylhet. He was sent to Sylhet with troops. So till the time he came, and Shafat Jamil took over. And during the war, he was commanding 8 was given command on the jet force in Sylhet area. He was brigade commander later on. From there, he died or he lost his job.
And both of them, sir, are known to be extremely loyal to Sheikh Mujibur Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Khalid Musharraf, and Major Jamil. After, events later proved that.
Yes, they were loyal, but actually things were moving in such a way that things went beyond their control. It's a tragedy on our part that we lost so many freedom fighters. We used to, respect them so much for their patriotism, their professionalism, but things were beyond control. That was the traumatic period in mid-70s, that 75, when a country went through trauma. We had to shed so much of blood for that, and the heroes we lost. Some of the events actually went beyond their comprehension and actually control.
So what was your experience with our General Yash Mose, sir? He was a student, right, in Mirpur?
That's what I heard. I take pride because anybody, from any army from Mirpur, we are Mirpurian. Anybody is graduate from Mirpur, we take pride. Because I'm a Mirpurian graduate and I was an instructor there, DS. So whenever I find any overseas student who graduates from Mirpur, because I met some of the Indian officers when I for courses or other visits in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, Sarath Fonseca. So that's it.
Sir, I think we have lost your voice, sir.
So,
As far as, sir, on Mirpur, Sandeep, I'll just add that Indian Army has been very deliberate in selection of officers who go to do their second staff course from Defence and Staff College, Mirpur. And you'll be pleasingly happy to know that everyone who's been to Mirpur has retired as a general in Indian Army.
Wow.
Really, I'm telling you, Indian Army puts in a lot of deep selection to send an officer to Mirpur. And we have had 2 army commanders who rose to be army commanders from Mirpur. In fact, last time I met the Bangladesh chief when he was the reviewing officer for the IMA passing out parade, and I as a brigadier was LO, and I told him, sir, we must have a annual or biannual kind of a dialogue and get officers, have an alumni association with Mirpur, because about 30 of us in Indian Army, sir, all either serving or retired as Major General or Lieutenant General, and we need to build this bond of Mirpur, and that can be it's an army to army or army to armed forces to armed forces, collaboration or, alumni association with Mirpur. It's a fantastic
Air
college.
Ishfaq was your colleague, sir? Air Commodore Ishfaq was your batchmate?
No, sir. He was DS in the NDC course, sir. When I was doing the staff course, the NDC course was also, they used to stay with us. So one of the Lieutenant Generals from Indian Army, Sir General Vijay K. Alwalia, who retired as an Army Commander, was student of General Air Commodore Ishfaq Ilahi in the NDC course. And that is where I used to meet Air Commodore Ishfaq Ilahi, his wife and the entire family, sir.
So he was a faculty?
He was faculty in NDCs.
Okay. What was your experience, sir? Air Commodore Ilahi, what was your experience with Indian officers?
Before that, should I say something on where General Jamil left?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
At the beginning, you said that there is a perceptual anomaly between India and Bangladesh. Well, some of the Indian new generation, they think that this is their war. Bangladesh was only on the side. And unfortunately, there are many Bangladeshis also think that this is our war only and Indians were on side. But thing is that, you see, it is evident from the presentation made by General Jamil that this was our war. This was India and Bangladesh, and India came in because of Bangladesh. If there was no Bangladesh issue in 1971, there would be no reason for, to have a war with Pakistan, okay? The Pakistan, the preemptive attack on the Indian airfields on the afternoon of 3rd December was because of the culmination of all the events that started from 26th March, as General Jamil explained. Okay, and another thing is that why I said that it is our war. As General Jamil said that before the actual move started, say towards the end of November 1971, the grounds were already prepared by 100,000 freedom fighters and all these Bengali regulars who had been operating. You see, as General Jamil said, that the main line of communication between Dhaka and Chittagong remained disrupted throughout. And all across Bangladesh, the railway, at that time the road network was very poor compared to what we have now. The railway was the main lines of communication between the units. So those were totally disrupted by the freedom fighters at a great risk, because when they used to say, for example, they used to blow up a small bridge culvert somewhere. All the villages around that culvert used to be burned down and people killed. That was the general order given, that any action, even then the Mukti Bahini in finding out remote places, they used to disrupt all this communication. So
Pakistan army were into retributory actions, killing villagers because of sabotage.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It was clear order given by General Niazi that if any action happens on the Pakistani forces or on the line of communication, all around the villages or the human habitation all around will be burned out. For example, all across our northern highways, immediately after the surrender ceremony, I traveled all the way to Rangpur and all. It was all burned down. The villages were all burned down. They're empty. So, in fact, the 10 million people who fled to India was because of this reign of terror that was unleashed. Okay. Anyway, another thing is that I would say that yes, of course, there was huge preparation from both the sides. You see, you heard the story of that when Indira Gandhi said, asked Manekshaw that can you go to war in April? He says, no, you see, I need time to prepare because the Indian forces were all across the Chinese and the Pakistani border. They were not poised against Bangladesh. The events that happened unfolded in March and April. Nobody in the world and also the Indians were not prepared for such an onslaught, you see. So they took time to prepare, but meanwhile, all these our forces were, the morale of the Pakistani army in December when the main onslaught started, main offensive started, was down in their boots, I would say. Why? Because you see, they can't even communicate with their home. They know that they have been cut off because of the naval and air blockade by the Indian Navy and the Air Force, and also they can't even move from their defensive position because just any small unit going out will be harassed by the Mukti Bahini. Just in another day, there was another in another session, one of the Indian brigadier, he was a retired brigadier who was a lieutenant captain at that time, he parachuted in Tangai, you see, and he said on the television that as early as April, the initial forces had penetrated and contacted the local guerrilla force of that is known as Qadiriya Bahini, Abdul Qadir. They prepared what was to happen in 11 December. The landing zones and others were well recognized and you see they were prepared by the local people. So if we say it was only Bangladesh which has done the job, That is also not true, and it is also not true that it was Indian Army. This was a combined effort, and that is only that the Vijay Diwas that we are celebrating across the border is only the right thing to do. But unfortunately, even in Bangladesh, as General Jamil referred, after 1975, you see, he will bear witness to me because we were together in the staff college in the 1980s. We could not even say that Pakistan Army. We used to call it Hanadar Bahini, means how do you say in Bangla? The attacking enemy. Which is that attacking enemy? Which is that occupation enemy? You can't name Pakistan.
Marauding enemy, marauding army, Hanadar Bahini. Marauding.
But you can't say Pakistan Army. And the whole generation, unfortunately, about 30 years of a new generation has come up who has heard the wrong history of the whole thing. You see, the wrong history where you can't, paint Pakistan as your enemy. But thing is that, yes, on international level, we are, we are not enemy of each other, but 71 still remains a mark point, and Bangladesh's approach that someday they have to apologize for all the genocide. Right now, there is a lot of seminars going on in which some of us, I participate. My brother, who was a sole survivor of a massacre in our family, my father was killed, my two brothers were killed by the Pakistan Army. So there is a genocide, going on, and we want this genocide to be recognized. Just the Armenian genocide has been recognized after more than 100 years. Now we want that till the time when this Bangladesh genocide should be recognized by the United Nations, and it should be brought to, and for that which of course we need to do a lot of.
Sir, your father and brothers were massacred, sir? Your father and brothers were...
My father was a police officer in the northern areas, and the first Pakistan, he was already before, on 2nd April, in a skirmish with the Pakistan Army elements, he was injured and he was taken to the railway hospital in a place near Lalmonihar, and he was very, he was already very badly injured. But in the same hospital, there were other Bengali soldiers who had been injured. They were also there. They were not in a position to move, and people when the Pakistanis came, local people, they, evacuated the town, and so the Pakistanis came and killed everyone, the doctors and the nurses and everyone who stayed on. They just killed about more than 40 people on that day. And my two brothers, they were actually college, and one was in the college, another was in the school. They were picked up by later on 13th April by the local collaborators, and they said that you have cooperated with the they were actually member of the Students' League, our militia supported student front. So they were killed. And one brother, he escaped. He was the lone survivor. So of the nearly 30 people were killed on that. So there was genocide all across. And this should be brought in the picture. But unfortunately, for nearly 25, 30 years, we could not say all these things, you see, because the history was written. And another thing I want to, as you said, that about quality of officers. I was for 5 years, I was staff college, yes, in 2000. And so in the NDC, about 2.5 NDC. And at the time, I came to know about Mathwalia and Yashmore and many more. In fact, both, let me tell you that, as he said, that there are we had our graduate from the staff college had been the Sri Lankan Army chief, and incidentally, the last Air Force chief in Pakistan, who had just retired a few months back, he was also graduate of Mirpur. So, in fact, this is one place in Mirpur where you have the Pakistanis and the Indians and the Sri Lankans and the Nepalese and now the Chinese.
And the Chinese also, sir.
Beg your pardon?
And the Chinese, only course where...
Yes. When I was DS, the first Chinese came, and believe me, in 9 months, they never opened their mouth. And even on the last NDC, I think I went for a lecture about 2 years back, and there were Chinese, they are now foreigners in the NDC. 1 year, they don't open their mouth. Have you understood? Yes. Yes. Do you have any question? No. Never. So, but I know that they have the limitation. But these Indian officers, I can tell you that always been very active and very sort of they can take the stage. You see that because they are the type of the type of officers they said. And coming back if we talk of the present situation, you see.
Sir, actually, sir, before you continue, Mirpur has other associations for the Mitra Bahini, sir, because that's where on the Mirpur bridge, 101 communication zone, under General Nagara, they had reached. So when General Niazi was completely hemmed in and it caught in two minds, General Nagara had actually sent him, there was a contact between General Niazi and General Nagara, and Indian troops were poised on Mirpur bridge, sir, at that moment.
That's not,
so
that bridge is not far away from from our staff college. Okay.
Yes.
Very close, very close. And this now you bring it another elements of that, because the Pakistani army, what happened is that they built up a lot of static defense positions. Okay, that probable approaches. But the Indian army bypassed most of this. Where they did not, there was heavy fighting. For example, in a place like Hilli or a place like Kamalpur. Begapan Jamil?
Kamalpur, sir.
Yes, Kamalpur and...
Sir, Hilli, Kamalpur and, Ganga Sagar, sir, where young Adivasi boy Albert Ikka got a Paramveer Chakra from 14 guards. My own unit fought
also near
Hilli.
But one thing I tell you, one thing that happened, nobody is mentioning, we are all talking about the army. But as an Air Force, let me tell you that the Air Force plays the most significant role in this war, because without, you see, credit goes to discredit to the Pakistanis, because from 1947 this country was, became Pakistan. Until 1962, can you believe that there was no Air Force in East Pakistan? And on the one squadron that came in 1962 remained the same one squadron with 12 aircraft till 16 December. They never invested in East Pakistan. There was one division in 1947 in East Pakistan, and that was the division till 2nd March, one division. And whereas all the, you see, I was a very young officer in Pakistan Air Force, and even then, because I was always a student activist, I used to engage in the conversation with senior officers about the defense allocation and why East Pakistan is not getting its right share. But वो घबराना मत, वो ढाका पहुंचेगा, हम तो अम्बाला ले लेंगे. अरे भाई आप अम्बाला ले लेंगे तो मेरा घर तो चला जाएगा. I used to say like this. You occupy Ambala, so damn what? What about mine? Oh, don't worry. You see, that is the way they deprive. It is another way, because you see, about 60% of Pakistan's GDP is to be spent on defense, and of that 60%, not even 5% would come to East Pakistan. As Jamil will say that we used to have bashas, thatched houses for officers, and in Pakistan they had huge air bases like Sargodha and Jacobabad and Masroor and Karachi, and all these investments were done. But that they paid in 1971 by a serious degree, because they didn't invest here. There was no navy. There were only destroyer they brought in 71 in the March, and that also they took away. So the Air Force was totally neutralized, and you see broad daylight these parachutes were dropped in Tangai because everybody could see. And the Pakistan Air Force could not do anything. Then this crossing of the Meghna River, you saw about Ganga Sagar, after they suffered I think it was Bihar regiment or something, they suffered.
So it was 14 guards, sir.
Okay.
14 guards,
there
5
was
regiments.
also defense in Ashuganj, where both sides. So what the Indian Army commander did with heliborne, the Pakistanis could see them, but they can't stop because they landed in 30-40 miles behind the Pakistani positions in
unique heli breaching.
So the crossing of Meghna, sir, the crossing of Meghna is a unique battle of unconventional, unpredictable, maneuver warfare by General Sagat Singh was in command, sir, and he used helicopters, and that actually turned the flanks of the Pakistani defenses.
If there was,
it was a brilliant move. It was.
If there was Pakistani Pakistani Air Force in action, the helicopters could not have
Yes,
flown,
yes.
or the the transport aircraft could not have dropped all these people. Another thing, the people support. I will say that brigadier was telling that once you see, one of the biggest problem of is airborne operation is that when you land on the ground with your parachute, you are all scattered and some of the equipment may be dispersed and you can't meet and the enemy will come and attack you. Here they meet with cheering crowd, thousands of
Yes.
people who are on the ground to receive them, and if one or two equipment or guns they have gone in the water or turned upside down, the people who are there to help them. This is a unique situation you will never find anywhere in the world. This war is a unique in that sense, where the 100% almost people are on your favor. There are 3 Pakistani Air Force officers ejected in the war on the first day. 3 officers ejected, 1 wing commander, 1 flight lieutenant, 2 flight lieutenant. 1 flight lieutenant who just ejected just the other side of the river, he was picked up by the helicopter and came back. But the other 2 who landed on the just slightly north of Dhaka, they were just finished. They were killed by the local people because the people are so hostile. Seeing them that they are Pakistani, they were at once killed, you see. So how can people operate? How can, after this, what will be the morale of the forces?
So when 50 para brigade landed in Tangail in Bagha Siddiqui's territory, the locals helped them carry the all the scattered material
Yes,
in
yes.
para brigade.
To
The
carry the
local-
packs and the ammunition.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And in fact, I met one of the para officers immediately after liberation. They were staying near Rajendrapur ammunition dump. They were there. I went there, and they were chit chatting, and they were saying it was very difficult for us to keep the people quiet because we were moving to meet the Pakistanis in front in Jadavpur, and there were thousands of people ready to shout Jai Banga. I said, keep your bloody head down, keep your bloody head down. But it was very difficult to keep them silent and keep them not. So you see, this is a war of our, again I say, this is our war fought both by Pakistanis and thousands of Indians died, both by Bangladesh and Indian forces and the people. Indian people, imagine, I must think, you see, at that time India is what, in 71 is not India today. They were suffering from chronic food shortage in West Bengal and Tripura, and 10 million people, they give shelter and arrange for food and accommodation and medicines and all these things. And there are many people, you see, Jamil went alone, but there are many people who went with their families, and total strangers, they opened their doors and said, you come and stay with us as long as you want to. So this sort of thing, maybe it will never happen again, but these are experiences that should be shared by the new generation.
Like you were saying, sir, so it's not just Indian Army. The credit has to be shared with the entire Mitra Bahini ensemble, which means Mukti Fauj, Air Force, Bangladesh Navy. Even though it was a fledgling small navy, they did a wonderful job in neutralizing Chalna port. The river and craft. Excellent job they did, sir.
Also, they even sank boats, rivers, ships in Chittagong.
Yes. They had done a lot of commando operations to sink whatever boats were available of Pakistan navies. The other thing is, sir, I'll just interject here that it was a combined war, and this kind of a situation, as Air Commodore Ishfaq Elahi said, is not possible in history, sir. That the entire nation was with the army, and the people, of course, most of them, almost all of them were supporting us. Even then, nevertheless, this 14-day war costed us 1,400 killed, 4,000 wounded, and then feeding 10 million people for a poor country like India. We are a very, very poor country that time. So, and the kind of josh and the awam, jo awam jab saath hote hain, to kuch bhi ho sakta hai. By the Bangladeshi people, the leadership of Indira Gandhi, the leadership of General Manik Shah, the leadership of the army commander Jagjit Singh Arora, and General Osmani and people like Major Jamil Hassan, though a young officer at that time. I think this synergy, this kind of brotherhood, camaraderie, only then this 14-day war was possible, sir.
And
just go all around.
Sorry, another
Sir, Commodore Ishfaq exemplifies the personal sacrifices made by then East Pakistanis erstwhile. He lost family, because the East Pakistan police force, they were at the front line, of the struggle.
Yes,
Right
yes,
from the
yes.
other days, pro police line days, and they were a primary target. He used to pick up policemen and shoot them. So that's where his family paid, sir. Air Commodore Ishfaq's family.
Yes, and there are many like
And their dead bodies were not traced later.
It's exactly what is happening in Balochistan now, sir. This is the old tactics of Pakistan army. You pick up people, kill them, and they are never found. Exactly what is happening in Balochistan is what happened in then East Pakistan, sir.
Tika Khan was here.
Actually, Air Commodore Ishfaq's family, Air Commodore Ishfaq, they did not find the dead body of his brothers and father.
So this is the old tactics of Pakistan army. They will ensure total obliteration of any kind of telltale signs or any residue or any body you'll never find, sir.
So before wrapping up, one element I must highlight, sir, which is the Indian Navy. The INS Vikrant battle group, the carrier battle group, the way they had blockaded the sea lanes and ensured that nothing could escape, no Pakistani element could escape from Bangladesh through the sea. That also must be mentioned in terms of tapping Pakistani morale. INS Vikrant was threatened in the initial days by PNS Ghazi. And INS Vikrant was a damaged ship, so it was not fully operational. It was kind of made operational through patchwork, All their boilers were not functioning. But still, they really played an exemplary role, sir. And kind of in wrapping up, because if you see, it was not just a military victory, it was a huge diplomatic victory.
Yeah.
Because if Pakistan could have prolonged the struggle, and with US Navy trying to kind of butter into this place, and somehow they needed an excuse. But INS Vikrant could take.
Let me interject here. Is that here again Indira Gandhi's role comes in. That she during this period between March to December, she went around the various world capitals to win support. And unfortunately, although there was a huge popular support across Europe and America and all, but the governments were very reluctant to come in, and many took it as a secessionist movement because they have their problem in their own home. But Indira Gandhi, because the Soviet Union, the role of Soviet Union was very important at that. The 25 years of treaty that Indira Gandhi signed with Soviet Union, and the very strong support that at that time Soviet leadership led by Brezhnev and Kosygin and Podgorny, this triumvirate, they supported. And as you said about Navy, you remember that when the US task force was steaming in, the Soviet Union at once sent their nuclear submarine as a checkmate. You see that you try to do anything, we are also there. And this was very important. The Soviet support. Unfortunately, all these 30 years in our history, we have been trying to appease the Middle Eastern countries, but those except for Egypt, Iraq and Syria, except for Egypt, Iraq and Syria, these three countries, all these countries, so-called our Ummah, Muslim Brotherhood, they never supported, and in fact they have financially and militarily they have supported Pakistan. So, and also China, had been not only supporting Pakistan during the war, but even vetoed repeatedly till the time Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib was killed. China, every time vetoed our entry. We could not enter into United Nations. So those are sad part of the history. We are all friends now, and we believe in moving ahead. And Bangladesh today on this day of victory, although a COVID situation, but let me tell you that we are making very good progress. The country, unfortunately, many countries have shown a negative trend in their growth. Bangladesh, although we could not achieve 8%, but we still have about both, ADB and others have said about 4 to 5%. And next year will be about 7% GDP growth rate. And if by March and April, if we have the vaccine and everything becomes normal, then I tell you that you cannot stop this country. However, before maybe we are finishing, I want to talk, say also to my friend in India that you also have to reciprocate. We have our problems, but then, raising ultra-nationalist views, using religion, whatever may be, in the part of politics, and also finger pointing at Bangladesh, that we are sort of sending in billions into illegal Bangladesh. It's not true. It's not true. If it was true, that during the process when you are sending all the laborers back home, there would have been at least hordes of people coming inside Bangladesh. Not one came back to Bangladesh. So in fact, with our economic progress in future, I'm sure this sort of questions will not be asked in future. We are having a very good relationship with India. Right now, I think by tomorrow or day after, we are going to have the Siliguri, the railway link connected, which was disrupted in 1965. You see, as a small child in Rangpur, I used to go to Parbatipur and I used to see the train going towards Siliguri. But in this, Pakistan they stopped it. So now these are being restored, and our communication is being restored. Our economic links are restored. We are going to have an Indian EPZ near Khulna, where the Indians, the design is that Indians will invest there, set up the factories for exporting items back to India, the engineering side and other things. So these sort of things are coming up. We should inculcate a better relationship between the two countries, because we got to be neighbors and we will remain neighbors for future, for eternity. Thank you.
Sir.
Yashmur can put in.
So I can just say that it's been a wonderful session, sir, to hear these experiences from Jamil, and you are of course a respected intellectual person, a very, very balanced person. Sir, I've seen your debates and I read your articles also. And I think two armies, two nations, same language we speak, same DNA we have. We have got to go together. We still are poor countries, sir, both of us. And holding hand with each other, not pointing fingers, I think, and trying to build a secular fabric of our people, sir. I think that is a message we need to give, sir. And both the armed forces must work together, must find ways and means where we keep training with each other, learning from each other, play sports with each other, do adventure activities with each other, and keep celebrating this Vijay Divas throughout, in such a wonderful atmosphere, sir. Thank you, sir. Jai Bangla, Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Bangla, Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Bangla, Jai Hind. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, sir. Great talking to both of you, sir.
Looking forward to many more occasions.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
26th March. 26th March would be our, 50 years of our independence, and that will be culmination of our Bangabandhu's, birthday celebration. That could be another occasion where
that will be another occasion. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
Remain blessed. Remain blessed.